In 1971, a telegram arrived at the Riggins house from head coach Weeb Ewbank. John was the first-round pick of the New York Jets.
His afro really stood out to begin with. And John, when he walked, he had a little bop to him. And besides that, he had the booty out there. So the brothers on the team decided, they just knew that John had a little blood in him, and so they nicknamed him Chocolate Chip.
It didn't take long for Joe Namath to learn that John was also a chip off the old block.
Sitting around in a bar in New York, a tavern, and his dad dipped snuff and I dipped snuff, and I had a little spit glass. And I'd have my drink here and I'd be spitting in my glass, and I'm watching his dad. His dad never spit. And I said, what do you do? He swallowed the tobacco. I said, wow, this cat is tough, man. And I just inferred that, this is John's daddy. I see where John got to be a tough guy and to do things his way, too.
In just his second season, Riggins gained nearly 1,000 yards. His size was obvious. His speed, however, kind of snuck up on you.
You're moving along, you're running 65 or 70, which is a good speed. But this big tractor trailer pulls up beside you and just blows by you. That was Riggins.
What I didn't have a good set of brakes. So for me to start downshifting that load and making it do, I had a little bit of a wrinkle, but not much. The smaller you get, the more of you I can take. Not that I'm going to shoot for it, but if you happen to get my way, then that's where it's going to go. And I like in my running style. It's kind of like growing up on a farm, not on a farm, but having cattle and being around cattle. There would always be one or two in the herd that they weren't like the other docile cattle. They were a little aloof. Eventually, though, you had to get them all, into the pen to load them up to take them to another pasture or whatever. You take that one critter out there that was on his own and you started condensing his space, you were going to get that space to where he no longer felt comfortable and it was too tight and he was coming out. He's going to run to daylight, that critter will, and that's all I did. I'd find that spot, and that's kind of what it was like. You squeezed me down enough, then I was going to have to turn and make my move, and that's kind of what it was.
In 1973, his third season with the Jets, John made his boldest move.
You know what? I always wanted a mohawk haircut, but my parents would not let me have one. So I said, hell, I'm going to get myself. So I just started growing it out. That was kind of, okay, folks, there's a new shooter here. And I'm sure, the message was intended for my dad.
Once overshadowed by Frank and overlooked by his father, Riggins now felt ignored because of Namath.
As long as Joe is in town, there'll not be 1,000-yard rushing because we throw the ball.
In 1975, his fifth season in New York, John played without a contract and did rush for 1,000 yards.
I realized in that moment that physically speaking, my talents were well beyond Joe's talents. So then I realized that, what am I doing here? This doesn't make sense because it's always going to be about Joe. And rightfully so. He's the one that made a name for himself, and I liken it to the Westerns. As long as Joe was going to be in town, I was going to have, he was the sheriff, and I was the bad guy, and he was kind of figuratively telling me that if you know what's good for you, you'll be on the noon stage.
Coming up.
He gave everything any player could ever give in that particular game. And I believe that defeat was so crushing to him that he walked away.